Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Please do hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It really does help when you do that. So today folks, as regulars to this channel will know, I am a big fan of Fane speakers. They're handmade here in the UK, in Yorkshire. I love their ethos as a company and I really love how their speakers sound. Now, over the summer, Fane released 3 brand new low wattage drivers onto the market: the F25, the F30 and the A30. Now, I've shot standalone demos of all of those new speakers and I also included them in my Fane Ascensions shootout I did when I had the Highlight VR504 amp here on demo over the summer. But one question keeps coming up time and time again underneath all of those videos, which is fairly predictably, how do these new Fanes compare to their equivalent Celestions? So today I'm going to bite the bullet and find out. Now, out of the new speakers, 2 of them have fairly obvious equivalents in the Celestion lineup. The F25 is a medium ceramic magneted 25 watt speaker, somewhat similar to the fabled G12M greenback, and the F30 is a heavy ceramic magneted 30 watt speaker, somewhat similar to the old G12H. Now, the versions of those speakers I have here are the Celestion Heritage editions. Discontinued now, but they're handmade in the UK, premium quality, the ultimate versions of those speakers you've ever been able to get, according to Celestion at least. Now, when it comes to the A30, there's kind of 3 Celestion Alnicos I could realistically compare that speaker to. In terms of pure wattage, the closest is the Celestion Ruby. But if you've ever watched any of my Celestion Alnico comparison videos, you will have seen that the Ruby is voiced pretty differently to every other Alnico I've ever heard or played. That speaker is not known for its chime, it has no top end on it at all, and it's super thick and throaty in the lower mid-range. So comparing pretty much any speaker to the Ruby would just show that the other speaker has more top end on it. It wouldn't really tell us anything useful. So that leaves me with the blue and the gold. Of course, there is the Celestion Cream as well. That's a 90 watt speaker, it's a very different thing. Now, today I'm going to compare the A30 to the gold for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I've been experimenting here running the A30 alongside both the blue and the gold, and sonically the A30 is closer to the gold, but also because they're aimed at very similar areas of the market. The A30 is primarily destined for mid-powered 1x12 combo amps, as is the gold. Now, of course, you can use both in 2x12s and 4x12s and various different situations, but that's their home, is the 1x12 combo. So as they're kind of competitors in the market, it also made sense to compare the A30 to the gold. So today what I'm going to do is put all of those speakers in their relative pairs into my Zilla Fatboy 2x12 cabinet and mic them using identical mic pairings. I'm going to get my ruler out and measure them precisely so the mics are in identical places relative to the centers of the cones for a perfectly fair test. And then play a variety of different guitars and amplifiers into the speakers and flip-flop between the 2 mic pairings so we can see how the speakers compare. And at the end of every excerpt, I am also going to show you how the speakers sound blended together, because in my experience, exciting things can happen when you do that. Now, one final thing to note, the sensitivity ratings of the F30, the Gold, the A30 and the G12H are all exactly the same at 100 dB. But the F25 has a sensitivity rating of 98 dB and the G12M has a sensitivity rating of 96 dB. Now, I'll be honest, I've already shot the playing today. I'm shooting this intro at the end. And in Pro Tools, there is pretty much exactly a 2 dB difference between those 2 speakers. So when it comes to those parts of the video, I am going to adjust the relative mic levels down on the F25 so it balances up more with the G12M. So we can compare the fundamental similarities and characteristics of those speakers without being distracted by a volume difference. So without further ado, folks, here we go. there we are, folks. Now, please do comment underneath. Let me know what you were hearing today, which speaker was your favourite, with which amp and which guitar. I love chatting nerdy guitar stuff with you folks down in the comments section. Now, there's some very interesting results there, isn't there? And we could take a deep dive onto each pairing and look at exactly how they matched up. But I think looking at the two manufacturers on a macro level, there were a couple of sort of differences between them that were universal between each three from that relative camp. To me, the three Fane speakers had more top end on them. They were less filtered and rolled off up top. Now, that might be a good or bad thing depending on what you're trying to achieve. If you've got a really bright fizzy amp, you might want the top end rolled off a bit. If you're using an AC30 and want as much chime as you can get, the Fanes might be more suitable. But also the EQ differences between the speakers were very interesting. I think generally speaking, the Celestions had more thumpy lows. The Fanes were thicker in the lower mids, sounded more open in that frequency band. The Celestions had more kind of sizzle in the up mids. And as I said, the Fanes had more treble on them. So they were kind of opposing qualities. They were fairly similar to each other overall. I think the A30 and the Gold were the most similar. The G12M and the F25 are probably the most different, but still they are British voiced, certainly within a ballpark of each other. So all fantastic speakers, and it's very interesting to compare them. But I think one thing it's really important to point out at this point is whenever I do a comparison of a Celestion and kind of any other speaker, there is something that people say time and time again, and it's really true, which is you will never out-Celestion a Celestion. And that is exactly the point I want to make in this video, because the Fanes aren't trying to out-Celestion. They are kind of in a similar ballpark, and you can see how they're equivalents in the market, but they offer you an alternative voice. There would be no motivation for Fane to create Celestion clones, because Celestions still exist and they make their speakers. So it would be pointless putting out speakers that sound the same. They offer you a similar voice, but with the Fane characteristics and DNA interwoven into it. So I'm always very careful whenever I put any comparison video together. I hate videos that bill the comparison as Celestion versus Fane, who will win, battle to the death. It's a pointless argument to have because they are two iconic British manufacturers doing their thing in their own way. Yes, there are areas of the market that both of those speakers and all the pairings are aiming at. Of course there is. But the Fanes give you an alternative to the Celestion with a slightly different voice. But I think the most sort of standout thing from this video today is the Fane philosophy and the Celestion philosophy. When you blend them together, it is so special. And I think today the reason I showed you how they sounded blended together was because I think in all of the excerpts of playing, I didn't prefer either speaker to the sound of both of them blended together, because those opposing characteristics just slot together and give you a super fat sound, especially the A30 and the Gold. Magic happened when I paired those speakers together, and I think at the end with my JTM 45 clone running into those two speakers, I think that was probably my favourite I've ever had that amp sounding. They just work together so beautifully well. So that's the other thing I really wanted to highlight in this video is Celestion are great, Fane are great, but pair them together and the result is absolutely godly in all three of those circumstances, with clean, crunch, heavier game playing. I loved how they all paired together. But those are just my thoughts, folks. Please do let me know your opinions underneath this video. I love getting your thoughts on all of this sort of stuff. So thank you ever so much for watching, folks. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. It's one I've been asked for a lot, so fingers crossed that's the case. Please do carry on subscribing. I know I always say it, but it makes a huge difference when you hit subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.